if somebody's uncomfortable with me having the mask off, I'll put it back on, but does anybody have a problem with me taking it off since we're at this distance? All right, well, just to make it easier for everybody to hear.
Is it on?
It is not on.
Is it on, Mark?
I'm turning it on. I need to hit the button.
Oh.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Is this one on, everybody? Can you hear me? Okay, my name is Suzanne, and I'd like to welcome you to the Mayoral Forum for 2020. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Matt Rao and Mr. Sam Flaherty. But before we get started, if you wouldn't mind please standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're just gonna, do a really informal forum today. I just have to go through a couple of rules. I am not a moderator. I'm just the hostess of this event because I felt like it was important for us to meet our candidates running for mayor for our city. And we're only going to be here till about 6:30 tonight. The first half is going to be a very friendly debate between the two gentlemen here. We will give them 4 questions. 2 of them will be two-parters. 2 of them will be regular, just single, without an A and B to them. We will give them 3 minutes for the regular questions, 5 minutes for the dual-part questions. There really isn't too many rules other than we want to all be respectful. When our candidates are speaking, please don't speak while they are, and vice versa. The debates aren't going to get heated, right? No, they're just real simple anyway questions. So we just want to make sure, where'd she go? Judy? Okay, is Judy back here? She's actually the building coordinator. She works to take care of this place and schedules all the events and everything here. She's going to be our timekeeper tonight because mine wasn't able to make it. And I'm also doing this because the moderators were very difficult to find, and I still can't find one for the Councilors Forum either. Anyway, let's get started, and I think we're just going to go for it. If anybody has any questions before I start asking questions, go ahead and let me know. Just get started. At the intermission, after the candidates respond to these questions for you, then you can get up and walk around and get some water or whatever, and then you guys get to participate as well. We'll also field the questions from our live feed on Facebook to get people that are watching if they have questions as well for the candidates. Okay, can somebody, okay, one second. I'm trying to keep this there. I need somebody to write a number on the back of this paper. You just write a number over you on the back of that paper. 1 to 10. Okay, I have a number here from 1 to 10, and whoever gets as closest to it will start the introduction. So we're going to have you guys give an introduction of yourself and what your skills are that you're bringing and running for. So what would your number between 1 and 10 be?
7.
Dead on. Oops.
There you go. Perfect.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Okay. So, Mr. Ralph, you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself?
By the way, that shows that a lifetime of watching Price is Right can pay off. On these games, 7 always pays off. And on Let's Make a Deal, 13 always pays off because they think you're not going to pick the 13. But most of you know who I am. Most of you obviously know who Sam is also. So I'll keep my introduction brief so we can have more time to answer questions. Just briefly, for those who don't know me, my name is Matt Rao. I serve on the Coquille City Council. I work as a private sector political and public affairs consultant. I was brought home from the hospital to Coquille, raised here, went to college, came back home to start a business and raise a family. And me and my wife Amanda have Matt Jr., who just turned 20 months old. The kid's outstanding, he's great. He's one of the main reasons I'm running for mayor of Coquille this time around, because I tell you, having been mayor before for 2 terms and running now as a father, it really changes your perspective on things. It doesn't mean I would have done things differently, it just gives you a different focus and a different drive and a different motivation. And so I'm running to make this town the best place it possibly can be. And I tell you, I think we're losing a lot of opportunities these days. Our finances at the city could be better because we had a council and a mayor who didn't understand their role under the charter. They took actions which essentially micromanaged our staff and restructured our departments, which threw us into a year of chaos. And just now, our very effective city manager, Sam Baugh, honestly, we really sort of hobbled him at the start of the race, but he's doing a great job now because he's been able to build his staff, fix the chaos, and hopefully we can get a council and a mayor who can work effectively with him to get our city back on track. One of the challenges ahead, and the next 2 years are going to be difficult for whoever the mayor is, because we find ourselves in a national, state, and local government crisis caused by COVID-19 and the economic recession. We don't fully know the economic impacts that are going to be hitting the community from this, or the budgetary impacts. And so I stepped up, even though I had tried to recruit other candidates. I ended up being my own 3rd choice because Councilor Chappelle will tell you and Councilor Wirebaugh will tell you I aggressively tried to recruit them, but I felt we needed somebody who had experience in that position, who'd had budgetary experience and experience in local government. And so that's why I decided to offer myself up. I want to get our city utility rates under control. I want to have an ordinance that will cap their increases to the rate of inflation. I think we need to make street improvement funding a priority again, and we should take $1 million from the $1.4 million in timber improvement money that the city has at the present time and utilize it for street improvements in the next fiscal year. I think there are a number of things we can do utilizing urban renewal and our future receipts from that to build a new seismically sound fire department or fire hall and a new library, and we can do this without raising taxes. There are a number of things we can do for this community despite the challenges we face, but it'll take a mayor who knows how the job operates, knows our city charter, and has the relationships and experience to work with our partners at the state, local, and federal level. I've done it before, I can do it again, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rao. And now, if you would like to just go
Great.
ahead.
My name is Sam Flaherty, and some know me as Fireman Sam, volunteer firefighter for fire department here for the last 4 years. 6 years ago, my wife and I moved here. You're not going to see her on camera, but she's sitting in the back row. You can wave. My wife, Lavenna. We're working on 30 years married this next August, which is awesome. We moved here 6 years ago because there was a church here that needed a pastor. Didn't even know Coquille existed. We drove through and immediately fell in love with the town. We saw a house. We were driving through the streets and we saw a home that had a for sale sign on it. We stopped and we just knew. We said, if we're supposed to come to Coquille, that's the house. That's our dream home we've always wanted to live in. Well, we ended up coming here, and long story short, we lived above Judy's New Image for a couple of years. I worked at Fastmart for several months to make ends meet, which was awesome. Met a lot of folks that way. And then we were able on a handshake to buy the very home we said we would always want to live in, and was our dream home. So that we purchased, we're vested in this community through our property. We love that community, that neighborhood, and this entire community. We've just grown to love this city. Serving on the fire department is just a great joy. Connecting community through the fire department and families here has been a delight as well. I decided to run, in large part, I believed I had leadership skills that I wanted to leverage to help the city that I love. I do have extensive experience in budgeting. I've worked for four multi-million-dollar companies in which I managed large budgets. And so that kind of experience I leverage in my work experience. In community and building relationship in the community, I've built a lot of relationship and trust and integrity. And I believe I can lead the process. I agree with Matt, sorry. We agreed, Matt, Sam. with Matt, there are some challenges ahead. I think it's going to require a leader who can work, who can lead the process, who can honor process and people. And I believe I can do that in this community and with this team.
All righty, well, thank you very much. We're gonna move on to the next question, if there's no objection to that.
Could you put yourself on the microphone, please?
We're just gonna go ahead and move on to the next question unless anybody else wants to comment on what they just said. Okay. What do you feel are the most important issues facing Coquille right now? Mr. Rowe?
Oh, just out of curiosity, am I going to start every question, or we're going to rotate them back and forth?
We can rotate them.
Okay, but no, it makes no difference. I just wanted to know.
You just stopped.
I think the biggest problem, challenge we're going to have is how to navigate the crisis we have with COVID-19 and the economic shutdown and the effects on our budget, and maintaining our service levels at an effective level without raising taxes. And that's going to be very difficult, but I have a record of doing that. I did it the first time I was mayor. We were able to double the city reserve fund and triple the street improvement fund without raising taxes. I've done it before and I can do it again. Part of it is a mayor gets to appoint budget committee members who share their philosophy. That will be one of my top priorities if I get back in there. I think we also need to, frankly, get the council in line with respect to what their role is under the charter. We should not have council members, under any circumstances, yelling at cops, telling them they're their boss, or telling department heads they should hire or fire this person. That's strictly forbidden under the charter. I think we need to have a council that understands they have a large amount of authority under the charter. But the folks in our city who created the city charter back in 1967 wanted a separation between the political leadership and the civil service leadership. That's why we have a city manager whose job is to run the day-to-day operations and implement that policy, because they are professionally trained on how to deal with finance at the governmental level, how to deal with employment law, how to deal with workplace safety, how to deal with labor negotiations. And one of the biggest problems in preventing this city government from succeeding in the last 4 years has been a council that believed it was their job to micromanage staff. I believe it's resulted in high turnover. I believe it's created a work environment where the council doesn't, or the staff doesn't feel as valued by the council as they should, or supported by the council. Now, believe me, the staff works for the council, but through the city manager. And that's the way it needs to be. The council sets policy, sets the budget, and the city manager implements, and our employees work for them. We need to get back to that friendly environment where people, I hope, want to make their careers with us. I think one of the best examples is Patty Strain, who started as a meter maid and finished as one of our longest serving city managers. But I think retention and our finances are going to be the two big issues moving forward. And forgive me for going over.
Thank you, it's okay.
There's no doubt, as Matt said, one of our biggest challenges is going to be the decisions that we're faced with as a community. And for sure, that is looked to then our leadership for those kinds of decision making. What I believe I will proffer in a stark contrast to the dysfunction of the council over the last year has been effective leadership that actually empowers people towards ownership in making decisions, not leveraging experience or knowledge to negatively paint a picture, but to hopefully leverage experience and knowledge to empower people to do their job and to participate. To say that they're doing something wrong and to leverage that counters what our city needs. Our city needs team. Our city needs to work together. So to leverage the knowledge, not to publicly bash or create discord, but to literally say, okay, let's work on some of these issues. What I would love to see is experience and knowledge leveraged towards team. And I think that's what our city needs. It needs leadership that leads with excellence, that creates a team environment. Oftentimes, what you'll see in experiences is the council, they'll walk down the street and it's hard for them to even look at each other in the eyes. The dysfunction of the team over the last couple of years We cannot go into 2021 with that. And what I'm proffering is we can make a difference and we can do it together, and it requires us to work together as a team.
Go ahead, Reba.
Well, and I know this is a friendly debate, but I can't help but sense maybe a little bit of that as a criticism at my record. I know I haven't seen you at many city council meetings, so I know you may not have seen, I've tried to work with some of the folks I've had disagreements with. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've seen you at any city council meeting since I was mayor on the council. So I find your criticism a little half-hearted and a little opportunistic. But I will say this. I will say this though. Where wouldn't you have fought? Because I fought to save a food bank from being evicted a month before Christmas. That would have been evicted if I hadn't fought. I fought to try and keep water rates lower. I didn't succeed in that, but I fought. I fought to try and keep city councilors and our mayor from illegally benefiting from URA money to fix their own sidewalks against our municipal code. I wasn't belligerent, I wasn't rude, you can look at the tapes or listen to them. And so I've tried to work effectively, but there's a point where leaders have to make a tough decision and take a stand. And so I fought for that food bank, and I'm proud because 700 families in this community benefit from that every month. And if we didn't have it right now in the middle of this pandemic, our city would be far, far, far worse off. So you're right, I am a fighter, but I fight for the right causes, and I do call out illegal behavior and unethical behavior. Now, one of the disadvantages you have is you aren't privy to all the executive sessions we've had. And due to advice from legal counsel, I can't comment on that. But the fact of the matter is, before criticizing other people, I would urge you to maybe go to more meetings, because it's very easy at election time to do that. It's a lot harder to do it when we're actually rolling up our sleeves and making the tough decisions.
It's true. One of the biggest differences this year has been COVID-19. So many of the meetings have, through great effort by Mr. Sambaugh, have been on Facebook. And so some of the behavior and some of those things is what I'm referring to. The community has really stepped up to support the food banks, including the ministers' associations and many of the churches and private individuals. And those things are important. But there's a narrative that happens in social media and in the public in which you say illegal, and that's your narrative. And in fact, the city, let's use the sidewalks downtown. The city is actually the ones who planted the trees, correct? In the sidewalks.
That had nothing to do with that job.
So they planted trees in the sidewalks. And
none of the affected sidewalks had anything to do with trees.
Downtown.
Had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
It really didn't.
Okay.
I know you're supported by one of those ladies who took that money and then returned it after she got caught. But the fact of the matter is,
I'm not sure who you're referring to.
And Harper enthusiastically
This is not
endorsed it.
remaining friendly, gentlemen.
Oh, okay,
Gentlemen.
I'm not sure who you're referring to, Matt. I actually come to the table as best I can without bias. I don't come with judgment. I come with one goal and one goal only: the city of Coquille and the people who call this place home, who want to live here, work here, and play here, to honor the process and people. And that's it. And so I understand fighting for something, but once a vote happens and decisions made, we then move on. We don't become distracted with some of those things. And so I understand, man, you need to fight for certain things. I understand it. It's how we do it, how we communicate, how we build the narrative so that we still have to be a team that works together for the benefit of the city. The city has to benefit, not our agenda.
And again, that's very convenient since you weren't there. And frankly, you weren't there before COVID-19. You weren't there to defend the food bank in November of last year. And I've never seen you in a meeting.
That's fine, man. And I haven't been in a meeting. The thing of it is due to our process, the meeting I attended was way back. In fact, we met when you were mayor, when I first came to the city. And I did show up for a meeting when some of our new council members were installed and just enjoyed the process. But the fact of the matter is, our process does not require me to attend meetings. I have been doing research. I was able to invest relationally in this community. The community trusts me, and the integrity relationship that I built. And
Well, again, I think if you want to criticize how people fight to save food banks, keep basketball courts open for the kids, and try and keep our pool open and try and do other things, maybe you should show up and give us the advice before you criticize.
I didn't criticize any of those things that you chose to fight for. I'm simply.
We'll never know.
I'm simply addressing how we build the narrative so that we create a team environment so that we can be working towards things that benefit the city.
Well, I tell you, when I don't like to be on teams with people who break the law, and I don't like to cover up for them, and I won't. Not as mayor, not as a councilor, not gonna do it.
Thank you. We're gonna stop this one right now and take a deep breath, and we're gonna go on to the next one, please. If elected mayor, with these plans that you just sort of mentioned, what plans do you have to implement the changes that are necessary? Does that question make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You want me to go first, or you want Sam to go first?
Let's let Sam take it first.
Well, I made it very clear from the start in running for mayor that I am running on a platform that provides leadership, that has a desire to see people work together for the benefit of the city and not my personal agenda. I have been spending several days listening to folks. I am not going to bring to the table a specific idea other than we do need to improve our infrastructure, no question. We need to improve our infrastructure in the city. We need to help improve our buildings. Our Main Street is the hub of every town. And so we need help in our Main Street. I love that we've done some work and gained investment on the Riverwalk. I think there's equally an investment that needs to happen in our city, in the city walk, at city areas. And so wanting to see some changes there, I agree with Matt. Absolutely 100%, our streets need improvement. Absolutely. I agree. And many things that he has stated earlier in his first response, I agree. What I am proffering, though, is a different way in which to lead so that the council members and city staff can begin to change the culture from a dysfunctional group to is working together towards the greater good of the city. It would be irresponsible of me to suggest any other specific things because some of it requires research on my part and being in a working relationship with our community leaders. And I'm committed to that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you know, one of the centerpieces of my platform is reinvesting in our streets. I worked, I see, Councilor Chappelle's here. He was on the council when I was mayor before. I see Councilor Capehart here. She was on the council before I was mayor and was on there throughout my entire tenure. And we worked effectively together with our city manager. We didn't have a dysfunctional council. It's funny, when I was mayor, even if some people didn't like me, we followed the law, we followed the charter, transparent, ethical government. Something I think that's been lacking to a certain degree in the last 4 years. And we were able to triple the street improvement fund through a series of general fund investments to the street improvement fund and using timber sale money for the street improvement fund. We were able to do this because we changed the formula on how we log the city forest. We went to a 40-year rotation where we can do major logging jobs every 10 years. One of the other reasons we have the money for street improvements is because on the forestry board, I pushed for us to invest in more timberland. The money keeps growing and making you money. And so I think we need to, in the future, take at least 25% to 20% of timber sale money and reinvest it in buying more timberland. But I think, and I was on the forestry board when we recommended this last sale. And Dennis Graham had the great idea, we should take $1 million of the money and put it into streets. Dennis Graham has done a lot for our city, was an outstanding counselor, and I think his wisdom is true on this. I think in next fiscal year's budget, we should take $1 million in the timber sale and put it in the street improvement funding and show the taxpayers that we're getting to the issues that are their major concerns. Streets, getting utilities under control, and I think we need an ordinance to cap utility rate increases to the rate of inflation. Because if it's good enough for our seniors on Social Security, it should be good enough for the city of Coquille. And we can fund that partially by looking at and by getting our water rates stabilized by repealing the franchise fee that the previous city council passed, which is essentially a hidden tax on our water and sewer utility bills. That would help fill the hole that's already in the fund and reduce the need for larger increases in the future. Again, saying that you don't have an agenda sounds nice, but just because an agenda isn't a bad thing, a personal agenda is, and I have no personal agenda. I've lost more money in service to the city government than some people do, down at the Mill Casino. It's because I love the city and I love serving it. But I do have a detailed plan to balance the budget, protect public safety, get a new seismically sound fire hall, a new library, get our water rates under control, and invest in our streets. And I would think that that's an agenda that people can get behind and will do more to rebuild confidence in city government than all the slogans in the world.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything to add or want to talk with the gentleman about what they just said? Okay, and we're going to go on to our last question. It has a little bit of a statement in front of it, and I guess maybe you could start. Would it be your turn next?
Well, I just know I go last in closing because I went first, but it's your call, it's your prerogative. I trust you, I can go, don't worry, you can pick on.
Okay, I'm not going to pick on anybody.
Well, believe me, I'm easy to pick on, I'm told that, my wife tells me that.
Oh, well, anyway, here we go. Coquille has been complacent in the areas of public safety and code enforcement for many years. If elected mayor to Coquille, what are your plans to address these very important issues and bring Coquille into compliance? Examples are the fines that were being issued regularly about the wastewater treatment plant, how it was out of code before it was even finished, just little examples that I've been given from citizens and stuff. The downtown corridor, the municipalities being broken, people, using their property for other than the purpose that this corridor is used for, personal storage, mechanic, parking lots and things like that. So those are just examples of things that I know. I've been working with Sam. He's got a stack of pictures like this from me. So if we could just maybe address that. And then I guess it would be Sam and then you, because this is our last question on the forum, and then we're gonna take a break and then we're gonna come back for these wonderful people.
Well, would it be me, and then Sam goes first on closing, and then I go last on, well, either way, it makes no difference to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
either way.
Well,
Okay.
Code enforcement, and I'm glad you brought this up because it's one of the least sexy issues in city government, but it's one of the most important.
Yeah.
Because when your neighbor has 20 roosters right next to you, it is not a treat. I mean, you can ask poor Arnie Hill back there what it's like to deal with some of those issues. His neighbor may not have been the best at following some of the codes. But I will tell you, we tried to address it when I was mayor. In my last fiscal year, we had funded a part-time code enforcement officer. I had worked, and our previous city manager had worked with the county commissioners to use in the city of Coos Bay to share a code enforcement officer. Ours would have been, I think, quarter time, which doesn't sound like a lot, but one full work day a week working on code enforcement can make all the difference in the world. We got a new municipal judge, and we had a city attorney willing to enforce and argue those codes in court. The problem is we had staff turnover. Our previous public works director had been working on still maintaining that. His job got restructured and he's not here anymore. That said, and I give our city manager full credit on this, the community development director, which is, has merged in some of those public works functions. He hired a very qualified and skilled lady, Haley Shelley. She is rock solid on the code enforcement. She's got to get her department up to speed. But I have hopes in the next budget that hopefully we can take some money and partner, hopefully with those same partners who wanted to partner with us before, so we can fund at least a quarter-time code enforcement position, because you can have the best codes on the books. If you don't enforce them, what's the point? This is truly one of the most basic definitions of municipal government. I wanted to fix it, but due to staff turnover and the new council and the new mayor, it didn't get done. I want to work with I want to work with the next council and our city manager to get it done.
Well, thank you, Matt. Again, I have to say I 100% agree with you. And by the way, if you have not had a chance to meet Haley, you should meet her. I agree with Matt. Sam, Baugh, Haley, these are important people, and they're new to our city, and we need to balance and normalize our staff so that we can empower them even greater to do the very job that they need to do, and to do it with excellence. So absolutely, man, and agree with every point you had. You know, I think with things like our infrastructure, like with the water, to cut franchise fees, many people may not even know what that is, or to somehow limit the rate increases. You know, what I would like our language to be, and when I think about leadership and leading with excellence and leading with team, is can we come up with a solution or create a solution that makes sense, that'll project us into the future. To carte blanche promise to not raise taxes may not be responsible, but how it's reframed is, you know what, let's work together and creatively look at the budget so that we can make it equitable for the city and project us into the future. And I think that's just super important. And the last thing anybody wants to do, and Mr. Rao posted on social media, is raise taxes on senior citizens who are on fixed incomes and veterans. But the $1 on water, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, the $1 increase in water and the $1 increase in sewer is $2 a month increase, so 24, is that right?
It's been raised $1 for each for the last 4 years. It's been raised $1 each for the last 4 years, and now there's a projection from our city engineer to finance potential water upgrades that are required of us from the state, that water and sewer increases could be up to an additional $30 a month.
Yeah.
And so actually I think it isn't just making a promise, I think it's again about being a fighter and fighting for our ratepayers. Because I will stand up against the state government, just like other cities have, to get a better deal for the city of Coquille. I tell you, we didn't raise water rates the entire time and sewer rates the entire time I was mayor. So it isn't an empty pledge, we did it. The problem is the council raised the hidden tax, the franchise fee on it, and didn't raise rates accordingly, which caused this hole. So the funny thing is, leadership through my style wouldn't have put us in this mess. Leadership by go along and get along is what got us in this mess. And so I think sometimes it does help to be able to actually say, hey, here's the background, here's the issues. This is why I'm fighting, to not raise rates on veterans and seniors. And I thank you for bringing that up, because I want to push a program, and I've fought to push for a program like that for the last 2 years, like Almsville and other cities have. They do it, it's not a baseless promise, and it works.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's a baseless promise, it's just that how do we collaborate together for the best for the city? The reason the rate increases were done is to make up the difference in the money we borrowed to try to update our water treatment, and also to generate capital so that we can continue to make improvements and not keep borrowing and keep going in the hole. It speaks to our infrastructure. So as much as I agree with you on our streets, how do we creatively address our infrastructure issues if we can?
I think part of it is relationships, Sam.
I agree.
And
I
again,
absolutely agree.
And again, you know, you could get along with 7 councilors all you want, but the financiers are in Salem and in the governor's office, in the state legislature. Relationships I have. Relationships in Congressman DeFazio's and Senator Whiting's office. I may not agree with him, I may not vote for him, but those are the guys you got to work with.
Yeah.
You know, you can have 7 votes on the council all you want, but 9 times out of 10, you got to be able to work with people. Fran Capehart was one of the most successful counselors we ever had at working with people up in Salem. I can't claim to even be remotely as successful as her, but she's a model that we need to look at. I think also, by the way, those increases weren't for upkeep and improvement. It was to offset a hidden tax, the franchise fee, which was never paid for. Because basic upkeep, we could have maintained for an additional 5 years after I left office without raising rates. And again, this is why it's important to have the experience and have the knowledge before you go in there, because if you take this at face value, you're going to vote to raise rates. At least that's what I think most people would do if they didn't have the information, because you're going to take it at face value.
So I, first off, will never take anything at face value. What I proffer is a process of working together with the team to come up with the best solution for the city. And so, never taking anything at face value. And I don't presume to know the intricacies of our city government due to your experience, but the experience I proffer both in budgeting and building relationship and collaboration. Collaboration with leaders, not just in our city, but outside of our city, is something I'm very passionate about and something that I've proven to be able to do in our community, not only as a pastor, as an individual, but as a firefighter for the city.
And again, I would argue to a certain degree. I appreciate your passion here, but it helps to have a little bit of experience. It's like me trying to walk into the firehouse and do what you do. I think most people would rather have you running into a burning building the same, because you've got the experience. I may be passionate. I may have voted to increase funding for that department year after year after year. One of the things I'm proudest of from my time on council is getting more money to the fire department, because I think you know as well as anybody, it was run down pretty weak before Chief Aaron got in there. But the fact of the matter is, that isn't how it works. And so, I hear where you're coming from. I respect your passion. You may well win this thing. But I tell you, this election isn't about who you'd rather spend a pleasant afternoon with. Because believe me, on that race, I'm going to lose. But the fact of the matter is, we have tough times ahead. I have followed through on what I've said I would do as a counselor. I did it as a mayor. I've done it as a school board member, where my top goal was getting rid of pay to play. My board member colleague, Roy Wright, worked with me on that. We got it done. And there's no more pay to play for sports. The funny thing is, I have this reputation as a fighter. You know what? I'm proud of it. But at the same time, I fight for what I believe is right. I fight for the good causes. And I have been able to work collaboratively. Roy Wright and I are about as far apart on the political spectrum as you can ever get. And we work very effectively together. I love Roy to death. You know, honestly, I noticed it's sort of like a cliche for prom, where one side's on one side and one's on the other here. All the folks here know me. I've worked with Rick Gaucher right there on Band and Port Commission to fund the fish cleaning station in Sturtevant Park. It was sitting idle for almost a decade. He and I got it done in an afternoon. Dave Chappelle and I worked together. Fran Capehart, Arnie Hill, Roy Wright. We all have major disagreements. Hell, Fran doesn't even like me. And I can tell you, we worked together though, because we had mutual respect, but also we had the knowledge and the background to get the job done. I appreciate your good intentions, and I think you believe you're doing what's right, and I respect that. I respect anybody who's got the guts to put themselves out there. But if we're going to pick personality over experience and a policy agenda, I feel the next 2 years for city government are going to be very, very, very difficult. And so I urge everybody to consider that before they cast their vote.
Great. Wasn't sure where a timer was at on that one.
Well, I wasn't either. I kept looking for it.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Well, thank you for offering to do it for us on the timer. In the community, a door hanger is starting to go out that introduces myself a little bit more in my work experience. So to suggest that I lack experience in the real world, in the work environments and working budgets with multi-million-dollar companies is not accurate. Do I lack experience in civic government? I do. I volunteer for this city. I build relationship. But I have, as a city council member, in the dysfunction